Hello everyone and welcome to the Mill. Today we're gonna kind of take a page out of normal content creators book because it's the end of 2024 or beginning of 2025 depending upon when this airs, and it's that time of year where content creators are all making their top 10 of 2024 lists. So at the Mill, we're sponsored by Stonemaier Games, and probably quite good for us, Stonemaier doesn't come out with 10 games a year because we would be buried. But what we can do, and what I was thinking might be a fun way of tying it in with Stonemaier, is we can still do a top 10 of the year. And what I want to do with each of my top 10 of 2024 is tell you which Stonemaier games. Oh, you want to talk about games too, Selenia? You're going to get some cat meows. She has opinions as well. Yes, I know. Okay, you're going to come up? No, you're just going to be noisy? All right, true cat fashion. She just wants to be playful. All right, but what I am going to do is I am going to go through my top 10 of 2024, and I'm going to let you know that if you like that game, which Stonemaier game you might want to look at, and that way you can kind of use it vice versa. Because if you're watching this channel, you're probably a Stonemaier fan, so maybe you want to know like what other new games are out there. So that way you can kind of use it as a kind of both ways, whether you like one game or the other. Here's one that this is how it shares a similarity with it. So I am going to go through my top 10 2024 games and their Stonemaier comparison. So for me, number 10 is, and this time I was smart and only brought the box covers, Andromeda's Edge. All right, for those who don't know, this is a kind of massive, epic worker placement game that is in the vein of Dwellings of Eldervale. And it's my number 10 because, wow, there's some cool stuff. And like so many Luke Laurie games, I love the pullback of workers, or in this case, ships, because your pullback turn is usually can be even more interesting than your normal turns. And he really dials that up a notch in this one, especially even from Dwellings, which was a really cool one with it as well. So I really enjoyed that pullback turn every time, and how I could, you have like 4 tracks in this one that you can activate, and it's such a rewarding combo-tastic feeling when you pull back those workers. So this is also this epic space piece. There's some combat in it, but it's not like the you have to do it combat. It's definitely a Euro. And I would say, I think my friends and I were all talking about this. We're like, we almost want Dwellings in this to have a baby because it does go a little long, I felt. I do want to play it again just in case, maybe it goes a lot faster after you know it well. But kind of wanted to have babies. I love fantasy themes, so I love Dwellings of Eldervale, but I also really thought the comeback turn in this was even better. Oh, now you want to come say hi. Okay, here's Selenia. She's been talking to you. Okay, you can stay down there. So, and my Stonemaier equivalent to this one, as kind of this epic Euro that also has some sort of combat in it, and almost some area control, is Scythe. So I would say if you like Scythe, Andromeda's Edge might be a good one to look at. Or if you enjoyed Andromeda's Edge, Scythe might be a good Stonemaier game to look at because it also gives you that epic feeling with this big sprawling map where there's just more that ends up on it. It's just so picturesque. Plus, you have some great combos. You have interesting player boards. Scythe is a little different, but you keep upgrading your player board in Scythe, a little bit like Andromeda's Edge. And it also has, both of them have combat, but it's not like, oh my gosh, you have to do combat to win either. So I do think they share quite a bit similarities that if you like one, the other one's definitely worth checking out. So my number 10 is Andromeda's Edge with the Stonemaier comparison of Scythe. My number 9 of 2024, I actually don't own, my friends own it, and that is Rock Hard 1977. I got to play with my friends who actually won it at a dinner at Gen Con. So they got the cool one that also was signed by Jackie Fox, who is the rock star from the 70s, who also designed it. So it's kind of this cool story. And the thing that really stands out about Rock Hard 1977 is the thematic touches, because you are going from, you have kind of a regular old job, and eventually you have to ditch that job because you're going full rock star. And it has kind of these three parts. I believe it's day, night, and then kind of almost late night. And so there are worker placement spots in each of those sections you only can do at that time. And you might need to save some of what you're doing in one. You can't go all in during the days, and you have nothing to do the rest of the time. So you have that thought process of that timeline and how important each action is. And sometimes based on who you are, you have certain advantages at certain points. And my Stonemaier equivalent to this is viticulture, because it really reminds me of the seasonality in viticulture. Because in Rock Hard, it's going like day, night, late night. In viticulture, you're going through the seasons. So you have to make that conscious decision of, okay, when am I transitioning from building my grapes or you doing my visitors? And it's a very similar kind of concept in your brain of, when do I move on to the next strategic part of the game to get to maximize my points? So while I don't have Rock Hard, I do have viticulture. Well, I have everything for viticulture, because it is, if you watch my Stonemaier video, it is my all-time favorite Stonemaier game. And maybe that's why I really liked Rock Hard, is it did give me a lot of those same mechanical feels that I love in viticulture. With, you can very much see that thematic tie and that timeline as you go across the seasons in viticulture and across a day in Rock Hard 1977. So both games I recommend checking out if you're interested in that kind of concept. So that was number 9, Rock Hard 1977, with viticulture as its equivalent. All right, and my number 8 is Star Realms, Rise of Empire. This is the Star Realms legacy game. My husband and I are through the first 10 games as of me filming this. So we still have chapters 11, 11B, because I got the Kickstarter version, and 12. And we are tied at 5 games apiece. So I'm really curious how this one is going to wrap up, because my husband, because of otherwise, has more victory point trophies than me right now. So I'm curious if I'm going to be able to even have a chance at a comeback. But it's been really neat. I would say my favorite part is really the early games. And I know Jamie Stonemaier has talked some about this, where you're stickering and upgrading cards right away, and you're doing it a ton those first few games. The first few games were really interesting. It hasn't changed as much the last few games, so I'm really curious how these last few kind of wrap it up. But it's definitely one where at first we thought my faction was doing so much better, and then you could see the thematic switch in the storyline, and my husband was doing much better. So it was like, I think I won 2 games and he won 2 games, and we've kind of been splitting since. So it does do, and you might not feel it at first, but we felt overall it's doing a really good job of balancing the 2 sides. And our last game was so close. My husband just eked me out, and I was like, I needed one more turn. So it's been a lot of fun, and I do highly recommend it as actually a really quick legacy game. It's only 2-player though. And so then when I was trying to make my Stonemaier comparison, I'm like, well, you don't have a lot of 2-player games, and you don't really have a deck builder, but I can match it on the legacy aspect. So if you really like legacy games, Stonemeier's big legacy game is Charterstone, which mechanically, besides the legacy part, is quite different from Star Realms Legacy. But if it's the legacy you like, Charterstones is very fun. And once again, there's a lot of that stickering and things changing. So if you like that sticker part, you like upgrading, you definitely have stickers upgraded in Charterstone, and you're starting that right away. So I definitely recommend, if you're looking for legacy games, Star Realms Legacy for 2-player, and if you just want another good one, this Charterstone's worker placement. So not the deck building of Star Realms, but either one, I think you'd have a fun time if you are looking for that kind of legacy part. All right. And so that was my number 8, Star Realms Rise of the Empire. My number 7, oh, I didn't even do this on purpose, but it worked out. My number 7 is Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth. This is a re-implementation of Seven Wonders Duel, but honestly, Seven Wonders Duel went on our sell pile after we played a couple of ones of this. We love Lord of the Rings in this house. Huge thematic tie for me, gorgeous art. And what I really like that it changed from Seven Wonders Duel is I always had troubles in Seven Wonders Duel with thinking through how much things cost once other people had resources in their tableau. And this one got rid of that complication. So I think it streamlined it in the most important ways so everything makes more sense. And there's a lot of thematic ties. There's your 3 victory conditions. 1, if the ring gets to Mount Doom, or if you're the other side, if Sauron catches the hobbits. And then you have the map where you're kind of dueling for Middle Earth. And you also have a way that kind of substitutes the science ones where you're trying to gain favor and influence with the different races of Middle Earth. And it's just such cool little ties, gorgeous art. As I said, streamlines it in just the right places. Almost kind of adds some of that Pantheon expansion from Seven Wonders Duel that I loved. And honestly, it's fantastic. We love it. I don't see us ever wanting to play Seven Wonders Duel again, except on Board Game Arena. So yeah, that one hit the sell pile, and this one's staying because we absolutely loved it. And my kind of going for a somewhat equivalent here for Stonemaier will be Red Rising. And that is partially because of, sorry about, I don't know what my camera thinks it's doing. There we are, we're back. Okay, Red Rising I'm putting in here because of the different locations, and also because this one was also a twist on an older game. So this was the twist on Fantasy Realms, and personally I like this one better than Fantasy Realms, though I keep both of these in my collection just because they take up different amounts of time. But in Red Rising, it takes Fantasy Realms, adds a couple extra factions, and makes them super thematic, just like Lord of the Rings did with Seven Wonders Duel. It got an IP and made it super thematic towards that IP. And in Red Rising, you can either go heavy on like the shipyard, the influence, or getting the red gems. Helium, I want to say? Sorry, I'm pretty sure that's it. But it adds kind of those 3 different ways that you can try to strengthen in, and those also help with endgame triggers. So I thought those endgame triggers, plus the fact that it brings in a thematic IP into an older game, I thought both of those, that really made Red Rising a perfect comparison. Not perfect, but really close with Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth. So that is my number 7, Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth from 2024 with its Stonemaier comparison of Red Rising. All right, so my number 6 is actually the other one that I don't own, but that my friends bought at Gen Con and taught me once we got home that I really enjoyed. And my number 6 is Forges of Ravenshire. This is a really fun dice worker placement game, and it's one where you really have to think of the puzzle of where it goes on the board, because that's the action you take, and then you take another die and you get that action, and then whatever color die you take, you place it on one of those colored tracks on your player board, and then it activates a little engine you have going there. So there's some awesome little engine building. There's another phase of the game where you continue to build up that engine, plus a really neat kind of worker placement with the dice where the colors matter, the numbers matter, and it's really neat. So to kind of pair with that one, I have another one where there's kind of dice. You don't roll them in this one, but the number on the dice very much matters for your actions, and that's apiary. So if you really like apiary, especially the part where the strength on your B matters because your actions are stronger, if you have a 4B versus a 1, then I think you might really like how the worker placement also works in Forges of Ravenshire. So I definitely would pair these, and think if you like one, you'll probably like the other, or at least be really interested in the other one. What is neat in Forges, though, is that it's not necessarily the 6 die is the best one. Some spots you actually prefer a middle one or a lower one, so it does change that up a little bit, but the number on the die very much matters in Forges of Ravenshire, and obviously very much matters in apiary if you want to get to certain action spots in the worker placement. So my number 6 is Forges of Ravenshire with its Stonemaier Comparison of Apiary. All right, top 5 time. And my next one, I actually didn't realize it was listed as a 2024 game until I started seeing it on other people's lists, because I really like it. And that is Nova Roma. So I was very excited to be able to put this on here based on what I saw on others' lists, and then going to BGG and seeing that it is a 2024 one. So Nova Roma is by Stan Kordonsky. He's actually local in Wisconsin. And what I really like, and I think Stan does this really well in all of his games, he also did Endless Winter and Rurik Dawn of Kiev, he comes up with some really interesting action selection systems. And I feel like that's what's at the heart of this game, is you have a grid where you're choosing your actions. So based on where you put your person, you get to take the 2 actions that intersects with. But once again, there are ways to make those actions stronger. And the more you have in a row or column, the stronger they'll be. But you also have other people placing their essentially workers in that grid, and they could block you from doing some of those spots you want. So it's a really interesting take. I guess it's essentially worker placement, but it's all on this little grid in the middle of the map, and it's just really, really cool. And if you like the Miko art, then you have the Miko art as well. Now, what I put for this one's Stonemaier equivalent is I thought about interesting action selections and came up with expeditions. Because I find I really like expeditions as well. And this one also has a very interesting action selection system because you are moving your cube, and normally you only can do 2 of the actions. So it has that interesting board and that interesting puzzle. And you do get a little bit of the blocking from other players when you're based on the map and where other players are going on the map. And both games have, I would say, different routes to victory, because expeditions, there's the different places where you can put your stars and the different goals you can go for, whether it is going for meteorites or going for quests, but you have different goals that you can go for. And Nova Roma very similarly has, since it's worker placement, you have, gosh, I want to say like 5 or 6 different main pieces that you could be building up, and it's one of those, just like an expedition, you can't do them all. If you do them all, you're going to struggle. So you usually focus on a couple of them to go really strong in to get your points. So those are 2 games where I think if you find, especially the action selections and the fact that there are kind of different routes to victory and different pieces to focus on, I think you will like Nova Roma compared also with expeditions. So this is my number 5, and it's Stonemaier equivalent, Nova Roma. All right, number 4. This one doesn't need any comparisons because it's straight up Wyrmspan. So Wyrmspan is Wyrmspan, and it's by Stonemaier Games. This was super early in 2024, and gosh, you can't forget it. I love this art. That dragon art is absolutely gorgeous. And what I really like that Wyrmspan added from Wingspan, I love the guild system where you're going around that guild track, just because it's that extra little flavor, and it always feels good just to get that extra bonus. You can see what it is in front of you. You can change the guilds. So this game has stuck with me all year. That and Nova Roma actually were very, very early, and I love it. And usually what I tell people is, because I do love Wingspan as well. Though Wingspan, I love playing it with all the expansions. Wyrmspan obviously just has the base game, and I think it's so good as is. And at this point, I've upgraded the meeple source meeples to dragons because I love dragons. And actually, if you watched my top 5 Stonemaier video with my kids, after that I taught my youngest, who's 8, Wyrmspan and Wingspan. He also really liked them. He destroyed me in Wyrmspan. So it's been a fun game, not just for me, but for my friends I introduced it to. who love it, and even my son. So I definitely highly recommend my number 4 of 2024, Wyrmspan. All right, top 3. Now, I feel like my top 3 are kind of sectioned off from the rest of them because I really, depends on my mood which ones of these top 3 that I like, but would want to play over the others. But I feel like they're definitely my top 3. And the other ones, it was kind of the same. Like, it depends on my mood if I go from like 4 to 10, where those might end up. So top 3. My number 3 is Let's Go to Japan. And I have to say, this is probably also my biggest surprise of 2024. I mean, I thought it looked cute, and I didn't realize I actually played this with other Stonemaier ambassadors at Gen Con in the Hot Games room, and oh my gosh, I had a blast. I loved it. I went and found and got the fancy version afterwards because it's so simple. Like, this has become my drafting game. Like, if I want a drafting game, I'm gonna go to this one because, once again, art is gorgeous. It's not that hard to teach. I taught this one to my mother-in-law, and it's also one of my wonderfully relaxing just solo games now as well. It's just a really neat twist on drafting. I think I would actually teach this to people. A lot of people go like, oh, Seven Wonders, Sushi Go, or like their go-to teach drafting to people. I think I would go Let's Go to Japan now just because it's such an engaging theme as well. And the drafting part in it is really, really cool. So my Stonemaier equivalent for Let's Go to Japan is Between Two Cities. This is partially because this does have a drafting piece to it, because you are picking from your tiles, then you're passing them, picking from the next set, and then you have to decide between your two partners in Between Two Cities on which city you're going to put your tiles on. Much like in Let's Go Japan, you have to decide which day am I putting each event. So I think between the drafting, the kind of lightness and weight of Between Two Cities, and kind of that little bit of interactive part with the drafting, I think this is definitely if you like Let's Go Japan, maybe try Between Two Cities. And if you like Between Two Cities, I'd recommend trying Let's Go to Japan. There is if you want something a little bit heavier from Stonemaier Games, there is Between Two Castles. Usually when I'm going for this, I go for something lighter, so I actually don't own Between Two Castles, because I like that weight for Between Two Cities when we need a larger group. When we have a larger group and we need kind of a nice light to midweight game. So my number 3 is, once again, Let's Go to Japan. All right, top 2. Anyone who's seen other commentary I have knows I'm a huge Ryan Lockett fan, and this year is no other. I absolutely adore Creature Caravan. Simultaneous play, much lighter than some of his other games, and super quick because of simultaneous play. I find that I am like medium weight games, and I like some lighter medium weight games, and man, this just hits a sweet spot. And once again, Ryan Lockett art. If you haven't noticed, I love art, and it just plays so quick, and it's such a fun puzzle every time trying to build out your tableau. And because of that tableau build, and also kind of feeling like a lighter side and a lighter theme, my equivalent is Wyrmspan. I just pulled out the Wyrmspan Asia box just for something smaller, but Wyrmspan also amazing tableau builder where you're trying to get some sort of combinations based on your bonus cards to score extra points, which is a lot of kind of what can happen in your tableau with Creature Caravan as you're trying to match up certain cards to maximize your points. So I think they have a similarity in that tableau building, and also just the kind of the lightness and breeziness in theme and in art that just kind of go together with the two of them. So my number 2 is, once again, Creature Caravan. And now, time for my number 1. This is actually one that I was really trying to make sure I got in. And there are plenty that, there were so many I wanted to get in that I didn't. But this is one I finally got in. My friends taught it to me. Oh, and I loved it. And after I just said I was going for light to medium, my number 1 is actually that's on the medium to heavy side, and that is Minos Dawn of the Bronze Age, once again by Stan Kordonsky. And this is on the medium heavy side of a Euro. And once again, interesting action selection system that I love with dice. So essentially it's worker placement, but in this one you have different dice, and so one person is going to roll all the dice, and they are yellow, blue, red, and gray. Gray is wild for a color essentially, and you get to put them down. There are 4 kind of main actions you can put them down on, and then there's one that's a wild action. So if the other places get filled up, you can choose the wild action to kind of give you some more flexibility, or to get you one of the things you want to do that was already filled up by other people. And so you draft these dice, and the numbers matter to go up some really cool bonus tracks, and the colors matter for that as well. And then the numbers also matter because of the strength of what your action's going to be from where you put it down. And the numbers also matter because the lower number is when you have to take that. So if I have a 1 down, when it gets to that time where I'm actually taking my actions, then that's what I have to do first. So you are placing out all your die, planning essentially your whole round, and you have to look at those numbers because that's going to be the order you do them. I love Rourke Dawn of Kiev, and it's kind of reminiscent of that action system. So this is another one where, oh my gosh, it's such a great brain-burny puzzle. So if you like kind of those heavier or heavy to middleweight Euros, you have got to try Minos Dawn of the Bronze Age by Board and Dice. Now my Stonemaier equivalent, and you'll notice I haven't been doing the biggest dice worker placement Stonemaier game for some other ones because I thought it matched with this one the best. So my one for this one is Euphoria. Euphoria is, once again, dice worker placement, so very much if you like dice worker placement, you're gonna like these. Okay, so the reason I put Euphoria with Minos is because there's different tracks in Euphoria. Just like in Minos, there's different tracks, and as you place in certain factions in Euphoria, those tracks get higher and people get different bonuses as you go up those tracks. And in Minos, when you go up different tracks, you also get bonuses. So I thought they were very much in that same vein of getting like comboing bonuses in a sense based on where you place your worker dice. And it was just, yeah, they're both great. And so I definitely recommend, if you like dice worker placement, try Euphoria, and also try Minos Dawn of the Bronze Age. And those are my best of 2024. So some notable ones that I do believe, if I had gotten a chance to play Tidal Blades 2, that might have taken my top spot. I play tested it super early in the process, loved it, haven't played the final copy, but I love narrative games, and I feel like that one it definitely would have been in the top 5 of mine, if not my #1 game, if I had a chance to play it. There's so many games I still wanted to play. I'm looking over there at Explorers of Navoria I didn't get around to, and I really wanted to play. Flatiron I really wanted to play. I'm looking at on my shelf over there. Oh my gosh, there were so many good Euros. I've heard River of Gold is really good. And yeah, so there's so much in 2024. I think I played about 45 2024 games, which is a decent amount. Some that just fell off my list, I really enjoyed Arcs, Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs, the new Unmatched set that had Shakespeare in it. Oh my gosh, such an English nerd, and I loved that set. So there were so many good games this year. What were your favorites of 2024? Do you see any Stonemaier kind of traits within them as well? Because I thought that was kind of an interesting, like, oh, I see this in this game. And oh, yep, it's told that part of that mechanic's in there as well. So if you have any other recommendations that tie in with either Stonemaier games or you just thought were great games of 2024, please leave them in the comments below. As long as you also have other questions as well, you can put those in too. And hopefully Molly will be able to kind of chime in her thoughts later on. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.